Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 4030-6-600. It's exactly what this unit looks like, and it's going to look like this when it comes to you, and I'll define what that means in a moment. Well, it means it's going to come partially open like this already. Okay. The 4030 is a representation of the fact that this is a single acting spring hinge from Bommer. There is a link below this video to both the template and the installation instructions. Let's look at the template first. Second of all, the 4030 is going to mean that this is a 4.5-inch typical commercial grade template pattern 4.5-inch hinge prep, 134 thousandths thick leaf thickness, 4.5-inch template pattern. So this is going to fit on your common hollow metal doors. Okay, single acting spring hinge. The -6 is a reference to the size, and while that's really not a dimension that you are going to end up finding on the hinge itself exactly, it's pretty close to what the overall height of the hinge is, less the button caps, to the hinge barrel itself. The 6 inch is more of a reference to the overall size of the hinge, the way that and the capacity of the hinge that it will handle. The -600 means the finish, and it's available in different finishes. The 600 is the prime coat finish. Reviewing the template, you'll see everything important dimensionally about the hinge, so that if you are trying to match one, and you have no idea if it's a Bommer 4030-6 or not, that template will be very useful in you using it, printing it out, going to your existing hinge, and comparing the two. Now, before we talk about the setting of the instructions, it's important to know that before you order these, how many you might need. Because of the axis of pivoting on this hinge, it's not permissible that you're going to really mix and match this with a standard hinge. The axis of pivoting is such that would be not compatible with a regular hinge. So you'll be needing to will absolutely be need to put these on all of your hinges if you've got preparation for 3 hinges. So while it's typical to have maybe the requirements of your door in terms of size and weight would require 2 spring hinges, you wouldn't be able to use this with an existing 4.5 by 4.5 hinge, because the distance from, let's just say, the leaf to the center of the axis of pivoting would not be compatible. It would be a bit too far. And you'll see a reference to that on the template as well. So you'll need to order the quantity of these hinges equal to the preparations on your door. So if you've got a typical 3-foot by 7-foot hollow metal door, you'd need to order 3 of these. If you had an 8-foot typical door, you'd probably need to order 4, whatever the case might be. Although, speaking of that, the recommendations are like standard recommendations, and that doors 7'6" and over would go to the 4th hinge sort of option, or every additional 30-inch of door height, thereof. So, 1 3/4 doors you're dealing with, because this is a 4.5-inch template pattern hinge. Okay. 2 hinges if you're dealing with doors up to 3 foot wide and 125 pounds, which covers a lot of typical 3070 metal doors, wood doors. Up to 155 pounds, go with 3 hinges, spring hinges, and 3 hinges if you've got a 4-foot wide door, not to exceed a 4 foot in the width of the door. Not that that would be very common at all. And it's actually, in my field experience and opinion, very beneficial to have all spring hinges, because you can share that work against or across all the hinges, so that you can get a more predictable, more reliable closing behavior from the door. This sort of hinge requires that they're all going to be this type of hinge, but if you had a standard single action templated spring hinge like Bommer's LB 4390C single acting spring hinge, you could mix and match that with a standard 4.5 Bommer 5000 BB 5000 hinge. there's an advantage to having more spring power rather than less is the summary of what I'm trying to say, because the way that the energy is stored in that spring, by the time the door gets to the very last 10 degrees or so, almost practically all that energy is spent. And if you've got a situation where you have to turn the spring tension up so high just to get the door moving through the closing cycle fast enough so that it will reach the closing end, overcoming all that air pressure, overcoming the friction of the latch bolt striking the strike plate, conditions of the opening itself. You might have a significant wind condition that occurs through the space. Maybe it's a parking garage in a condo, and occasionally a door at the other end of this, the giant parking garage is open. You might have, or it's closed, and you set it, in those sorts of circumstances. Being able to share that job across all the spring hinges is actually a benefit. There's no doubt about that. I think of it as a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they can pull a lot of weight. And when you've got a lot of spring hinges sharing that job, to me it's analogous to having a tugboat do the job, is the bottom line. Now, if there's any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. Speaking about holes, template pattern, and whatnot, you're going to get all machine screws and half wood screws, so you'd be able to do a metal door metal frame or a wood door and metal frame. Okay, they'll be in a complementary finish. This happens because this hinge is prime coat. These screws happen to be satin chrome, which the intent is that you're obviously painting the hinge. Now, the installation instructions. This hinge is this hinge requires a review of this because it ships from the factory a little funny, meaning that there's already tension set on the spring, and that it's cocked open like this at whatever 40 degrees, 45 degrees, whatever. Let's review the installation instructions now. When the hinge comes to you this way, this is how it is supposed to be. The hinge is specifically set this way so that you've got room to actually get the door hung with the hinge exactly in this condition. Okay, so this is normal. You're actually going to not do anything to the hinge yet regarding the tension pins or the included tension rod, tension pin, and the rod. You're not going to do anything with that until the door is hung. So hang the door first. You got enough room there, to get your situation installed. Okay, you'll be able to get your screwdriver straight. Now, going to the top of the instructions. The hinge, first of all, this hinge can be used for right or left-hand doors and pairs, obviously, without changing the appearance to obtain the opposite hand. Simply turn the hinge upside down. This hinge, what they're saying is, it looks symmetrical for all intents purposes. Just flip the behavior over based on, flip the hinge over and then reverse the behavior of what we're about to discuss. Upper right-hand corner, second paragraph. The fixed collar can be identified by the tension pin placed in the collar to hold the hinge open while installing hinge to the door and jamb. What they mean specifically is this. This pin here is holding the hinge open. This is the fixed collar. Versus the pin that's down here that is on the outside of the barrel, not holding the leaves open. So one pin is on the back side and the other pin is on the inside. This is what they're calling the fixed collar. Like it's referred to, it's used as a retaining pin. It's used to hold this open. If I spread this, I could take the pin out, but then my hinge is going to close. You don't want that. Don't remove it, is the bottom line. Not yet. Caution, do not try to close the door while the tension pin is placed in the fixed collar, meaning you get the door installed like this. Don't try to close it because that pin is there. Moving on to the next section. This hinge is designed to be fastened to the door and jamb under preset tension. Do not remove tension pin. Okay. The leaves are held apart less than 90 degrees, which gives room enough to fasten the hinges in this position. We covered that. Now, you get the door hung. After installation, open the door to 90 degrees, then remove this tension pin. You're going to actually open the door, and you'll be able to put your hand right there and pull that pin out. And if I tip the hinge down, it will fall out. I don't want to do that because then I'd have to work my fingers in this because it's still under tension because of this pin down here. But if I if I were to open that up and drop it, the pin will come right out. So you're going to remove that pin. Now the door is already under tension, and you might be good to go. You might be done. Your door might work properly. Make sure you repeat that behavior to all of the hinges on the door, of course. Pull your tension pins out. And save those tension pins. Absolutely save them. You never know when you'll need one. People end up having to buy tension pins because they're lost. Painters come in and unhang the doors and the tension pins are lost, and now it's, the pin might be $1, but the shipping is $1 million, in comparison. So hang on to the tension pins. The bottom third, additional tension. If additional tension is desired, put tension rod into tension collar and turn 1 or 2 holes further as shown. Now what they're referring to here is down here. Okay, we're leaving the fixed collar, going down to this collar now. Now you're standing on the pull side of the door. If you need to set additional tension, you will use your tension rod. Okay, and you can rotate that clockwise, and that's under tension. There's no doubt about that. There's all tension in there. So the way that I'm showing it to you here, from my perspective, this is turning clockwise. You know what? Let's reverse it. Well, I can't reverse it. When the perspective that I'm showing you, you'll have to envision that this is from my perspective, the opposite of yours. This is going to represent the diagram in the lower right-hand corner of the instructions. If this hinge happens to be turned over, then it's going to look like the diagram in the lower left of these instructions. That's the only behavior that you have to know that's different. So you can turn that 1 or 2 additional holes. That's all the tension that you'll be able to get out of this. Don't turn it anymore. You can break or damage the spring, and it's not replaceable. It's not something that can be rebuilt. And that's how you set the tension. And that's it. Save your tension rod. Save those tension pins. So you'll get the door hung. You're going to remove this. The door's still under tension. You're going to open it to 90 degrees, remove the pin. Now your door, you can test the door for operation. If you need more spring power, you go down to the collar, not the fixed collar. They just call it the tension collar. This is the fixed tension collar. This is the one that's not. And you're good to go. That's how this works. Now, Bommer is a full-line manufacturer of all things spring hinge related. And their logo is stamped inside of there. You can't but really see it. And they just make a fine quality spring hinge. Of that, there can be no doubt. There you go. You can see right below the logo it says Made in USA. A fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. People end up coming to these Bommer hinges, in my opinion, or in my experience, sooner rather than later. I've had people call me up and say, I keep buying these inexpensive spring hinges and they just break. Well, yeah, it's the old, maxim. You get what, you pay for kind of thing. And for the cost of what these spring hinges are from Bommer, and considering the fact that they are the industry standard of this sort of product, and if you're using it as a spring hinge like this, it could be a fire-rated door and it must be self-closing. So it's my opinion that you buy the best, especially when it's a code issue and a fire door, so that you can depend on the hinge as well. Available in different sizes as well. They've got the -7, etc. And they're not only spring hinges. Bommer makes, of course, the one that they're most known for is that 3029 double-acting spring hinge, but they have a full complement of architectural commercial hinges. And they make every conceivable sort of hinge that is commercially requested. Great quality company. It's a pleasure to be a distributor of theirs. And if you have any questions on the Bommer 4030-6-600 or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.